Tony, if you live forever, or you can delay death indefinitely, you're going to have many opportunities with this woman. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So don't
it makes sense. But
don't
love is hard.
love
Love
it.
is hard. Feeling
Love is
love is
hard.
not easy.
Absolutely, I'm in agreement with you. It's not easy, but especially with the idea of life extension technology, age reversal, mind uploading technology, revivification technology. What was only a life of perhaps 50 to 70 years of past generations is 5 billion to 7 billion, or whatever you want it to be. I mean, you could you could marry this woman, break up with her, marry her, break up, marry with her, break up, do whatever you want to do 1,000 times on this timeline if you want.
That's true.
And she'll hear
Mm.
this conversation and she'll say, Tony, I didn't know how. Did you ever tell her that you liked her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So it didn't work out. It's no big deal. You will recognize that you're going to be much more famous than the guy she likes in the future. And uh, you're going to have more power, more influence, and it will be your choice whether you guys are together, not hers. I mean, she'll have the choice. Consent is very important. But basically, you're going to have 50 girls who are prettier, younger, wealthier, and have more of what you want than this random girl from your town or whatever. And you're going to be able to make the decision, do I want to be with this person, or do I want to have a relationship with this supermodel? Whatever you want.
True. True. But do you happen to with you same or no?
Uh, I fall in love with every woman that I meet in my own way. And what do I mean by that? I can find beauty in anyone, but I've never been in love like um, I. I've always been very focused on myself and my personal goals, and I've had a lot of opportunities. And I mean, I've had many relationships, but um, I never wanted to settle down at that time. There was a time in my life where I wanted to begin to settle down, but it was the pandemic, and I started this live streaming. Um, but
Yeah.
prior to that, I was interested. My thought, though, is why settle? I could have, the prettiest girl of a neighborhood in Los Angeles, or I could have the prettiest girl of a neighborhood anywhere in the world. I mean, those are like the opportunities that I have, and
Yeah.
uh, I or of most intelligent or funniest. Like there are a lot of things for which I look in a woman, and really intelligence is first. But do I think about people? Oh, if only something in my life would have gone differently, would I have ended up with that person? Potentially, but then I say to myself, I would be worried about making tuition payments for my children, or I would be worried about making a mortgage payment for my family, or whatever. Right now, I can focus on myself and this project, which to me is the most important project in the entire world.
Mhm.
And anyone who says anything differently, in my opinion, is being closed minded to it. Uh, the idea of being able to study a human life in mass at length
That's
in their most private of ways, and then have that information shared with the world to be able to be studied is an incredible opportunity for
yeah.
people. That, like, to me, it's like, okay, so let me put it in, like, you like Messi a lot, right?
Uh, Ronaldo.
Okay, you like Ronaldo a lot, right?
Yeah.
Okay, do you ever notice, like, do you know what a breakaway is in soccer?
No.
Okay, it's like when the ball is kicked, and it's like Ronaldo can see like 5 seconds ahead of everybody. He knows where everybody's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
be, and he just gets it, and he's able to dodge everybody. And then it's just, but an issue where it's between him and the goalkeeper,
Yeah.
and he blows past the goalkeeper and scores, and he makes it look so
Yeah.
easy. And it's like he can see how it's going to happen before it actually takes place. He can see, just
Mm-hmm.
like in chess, just like you in chess, where you can sometimes see the moves that your opponent is going to make beforehand, or you have to
Yeah.
plan on that. I do the same with my streams, and I recognize that if I just do this for a long enough period of time, enough people will find out about what I'm doing, and I will continue to gain a community. And it's like with anything in life, if you do it for a long enough period, it will attract attention. There are people who want to run across the United States or run across Europe or run across the world. There's a guy who's been doing it now for like 20 years or something, some amount of very long amount of time. He started he wanted to walk around the world, and he started like in South America and made it all the way up through North America and made it into Asia, and right now he's like in he's approaching Europe. And guess what? Nobody cared about what he was doing on day one, but now he's gained enough attention that this has become interesting. Mr. Beast. There's that famous video of Mr. Beast where he's like, "It's 2020. It's 2014. I'm just starting on like my journey. This is my first video, and we'll see what happens in 10 years if I keep doing this." And then all of a sudden, 10 years go by, and he's a billionaire. There's the Joe Rogan experience, which is which started with just Joe Rogan having conversations with his friends, and he thought, you know what, let's record this, and maybe other people are going to want to hear it too, and we'll see if it goes anywhere. And he's going to become a billionaire because of this endeavor, because he's put together 2,500 of these episodes. There's the Oprah
Yeah.
Winfrey Show. Oprah Winfrey was a talk show host for 30 years, and she would just do it every single day. If you do something every single day, just like with you in chess, when you started playing chess, you weren't very good. But now you're pretty good because you've played every single day because you've just continued to do it. Um,
Yeah.
and I say the same thing with my streams. If I continue to do it, I continue to just be able to provide for myself. I don't go overspending. I stay within my budget. I keep myself safe. I don't take unnecessary risks. I don't lose my accounts. I'm like smart about what I do. If I do it for a long enough time, people will find out about it, and they will see how much I have put together. Like, I sent you 3 videos or whatever of like little cool little snippets. I have tens of thousands of videos just like that that I've made that nobody knows about. They're on social media, but it's just like there's so much social media out there that nobody really cares.
Yeah.
However, when they start to care about me, they'll recognize that, wow, this person has so much cool stuff. It'll be like you ever go into a candy store and you're like, you don't even know what to choose. There's just so much available, and it's like more than you could ever eat. I have more content than any individual could ever digest in their entire life, and I find that to be really an amazing gift. And we talk
Yeah.
about it. If something were to happen to me, I have a significant part of my life that is archived to the world. And somebody in the future, like some kind of internet archiver, internet historian, would stumble upon what I have and recognize, hey, there's a lot of content here, and it would it would be a big discovery. Here's an example. YouTube does not give very good statistics on stuff. Like, it'll tell you how many subscribers a person has and how many videos it has, but it does not put in there how many hours of time they have on there. If they had that, I would be known by now already, because I would just have, you know, thousands of hours on there that somebody would
I
pay
know.
attention to which they would pay attention. But they don't realize it because the statistics aren't being provided for them. And I don't really worry about it. Uh, I just know I just have to keep consistent, and the things that we're doing, like the timeline, are like that's really important. And just from if you're like, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you put the timeline out? I'm always worried because I can lose any of my accounts at any time. Um, that if I put all this work into it, it could go away. So I've partnered with you and we put it on your profile. You get the views, but also you're going to get credit for having this extreme vision that I have. I'm very impressed with you that you're not like, Rabbi, we did 4 years. That's it. Like that's good enough. And that would be fine. That would be good. But no, you recognize we're gonna have like 100 hours of
Yeah,
video together at least by the time we're done, and then you're gonna have one of the most amazing uh, playlists, and more and more
in the world.
people, exactly, and more people are gonna delve into your playlist, and it has really good descriptions, and you're gonna get to be really creative with the the with the thumbnails, and uh, I would uh, I mean you can do whatever you want for the thumbnails, but I would um, I would basically take the descriptions that we have and put it into social media. You can always change the thumbnails too, can't you? I think you can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I
I
would
can.
I would
Oh,
put up thumbnails, and we'll see what works and what we like, and then eventually we might just have a standard kind of thumbnail that we use. Does that make sense?
mhm. Yeah.
So you're just gonna
So
put
like,
go ahead.
mhm.
You're just gonna put something
No,
up.
no, no, no.
You're gonna put something up. We're gonna look at it. I had a friend of mine who I was telling him about this project that we were doing, and he's like, "Oh, where can I get it?" And I was like, "Well, it's not available yet, but Tony, I was telling him about you. I think he's met you. He's going to be putting it out. I told him later today or something. But I'll send you the link when we're done because he really thinks that's a really cool website. He's seen it before, and there's just a lot to it. And I think that you will recognize as an individual that it's like how would we? This is in I don't know, almost from like uh a technological standpoint, making these videos is like buying Bitcoin in 2010. And what do I mean by that? Yeah, it's like a lot of work to do or whatever, and it's not going to be getting a huge amount of people to view it. However, in the future, you will recognize that it is more important than any other endeavor that you ever did. It's like making a book or a scroll or some type of medieval manuscript. Like it will be
Yeah.
studied. It will be studied by people millions of years into the future.
Right. Yeah. But did you ever happen like like you want a girl and she said no because this one is better and blah blah blah? Did it ever happen?
Did I ever have a girl who liked another guy?
Yes. Yeah. And you like her, but she doesn't like you back because you are not that point like money all this.
Um, I can say that I. I mean, in a lot of ways, I got the girls that I wanted. Um, but in the cases where it perhaps didn't happen, I haven't given up. And they may be married and have children, but if we live forever, then we could still have a relationship 300 years into the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I haven't given up on any of them. So it's just temporary. And maybe that's just the way that I look at it. You're saying, well, I want this girl and she's with this other guy, and that's fine. You can't look at this as, you know, but we have to get married before I'm 25 or something like that. With life extension technology and reverse aging and mind uploading and revivification technology, you might be able to get married to this woman 10,000 times if you want in the future. You may be able to, and I know that's hard to like wrap your head around, but to me that helps me to know that it's just temporary. Like, um, and I have spoken with women who I have, like, perhaps we were really probably just friends, but maybe there was some relationship aspects of it, and they'd still tell me they think about me, so I know I've made an impact on them. Uh, something that you always say to me is that I'm interesting, and that's what they all say to me. There is not a woman I've ever met who does not find me interesting. I will blow your mind in terms of what I do, who I am, and what I say. Tony, you recognize that you could, in your whole town, talk to 1,000 people, and not one of them is going to talk to you about mind uploading technology, right?
No.
Exactly. And I talk about it 10 times a day, or life extension technology, or de extinction, or teleportation, or telepathy, or space tourism, like all the things that we talk about in our timeline. Nobody's talking about those things. I recognize that I'm on a level higher than your average individual, and I sometimes just have to be okay with that. I get some people who are like, um, they'll want to have a conversation, and I'll want to talk about life extension or mind uploading or interstellar travel or anti gravity, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Like, I just wanted to talk about who is going to win the World Cup or whatever, and it's like, okay, I can talk about that too. That's cool. Not everybody's on that same level, um,
Yeah.
but I mean, just what I talk about is way different than anybody else, and that makes women really attracted to me. Um, more like that's kind of my gift. I mean, everybody can talk about things. I'm very funny with just in general. I'm a very funny person. That's my gift, and uh, I'm interesting and I'm extremely confident. Like those are some of the. If I had superpowers, those would be some of my superpowers. Um, am I the smartest person in the world? Perhaps no. Am I the fastest person in the world? Perhaps no. Am I the strongest person in the world? Perhaps no. But I have the confidence to know that in many ways I'm the most interesting person in the world, and
Yeah.
with that which I talk about. And there may be some people who are like, well, I've climbed all the highest peaks in the world, or I've run an ultra marathon, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Where's your proof? And they'll be like, oh, well, here's a picture of me. I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Do you want to see my life for the last 5 years? Here you go. You can see every moment of every day. You could spend your kids can learn about what I was doing on this day 50 years from now if you want. Like, that to me is really, really cool. Not everybody thinks it's cool, but those people who learn about what I'm doing, they recognize that it's it's we're only at the tip of the iceberg of the information that we can glean from these streams. It's like it's incredible. So um, I'm not in terms of women. I know you got your mind on women. I haven't given up on anybody yet, and I refuse to. I think that every girl that I ever went to school with, or at any time, or I didn't like as I got older, I was with boys. I was like around boys, so I didn't have uh, like but I'm talking about like when I was like a little kid and like boys and girls were more together. Um, every single girl that I ever met, I could, if I wanted to in the future, if time is given enough time, have an entire marriage with them and be extremely
You
happy.
think I can too?
Absolutely. I wouldn't tell you that if I didn't wholeheartedly believe it. The
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna you would find, I don't know, I'm not saying I'm the only person, but I don't talk like a normal individual. I
Yes.
recognize that the power of data is such that it's going to transform my life and in turn transform your life and give you the resources to be able to live longer, to be able to have a better quality of life, and to be able to perhaps delay death indefinitely. And if that happens, then you're going to have to fill your time with something,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be very famous. Every girl that you ever went to school with or knew as a young person, or every girl that you've met in your teens or your 20s, is going to say, I know that guy, and I want to be with him because he was so smart that he put out a tweet one day, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? And I saw that tweet and came to you and was like, yeah, I want to be on your podcast. And that that to me is probably you will consider to be the greatest thing that you ever did in your entire life. Could I be wrong? Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. We could have an asteroid destroy Earth today, but if you have incredible vision, Tony, and even just, but we've only seen 4 years into the future, and we're already talking about 100 terabyte hard drives and
Yeah.
8K virtual reality and the mapping of the world's oceans and economies changing and going into space. Like, you have an incredible vision that a lot of people would just be like, look, Rabbi, I love you, but I don't want to hear you read for an hour or whatever. This is boring to me, but it's not. You recognize, and I understand it's not always exciting, but you'll recognize as we do this project, it is,
Yeah.
it's going to be incredibly interesting. Like,
Yeah.
everything that I read in that, I'm never like, this isn't cool. This isn't the coolest stuff I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, it's all really, really interesting. And you're going to have
Yeah.
women who, let's see here. How could I describe this for you? Without, like, with people you would know. Um, I guess it would be something like Mr. Beast, because you're familiar with who that is. Uh, you would be like a young Mr. Beast, where when Mr. Beast first started his streams, there were girls who broke his heart, and he might have wanted to be with, and they didn't want to be with him because he was a nerd or because he wasn't the best looking guy or whatever. And today, if he wanted to, he could probably be in a relationship with any one of those girls. Simply from the fact that they would want to be the girl who was able to conquer Mr. Beast, that they were able to be with this very famous individual. And you're going to have the same thing. It's just a matter of time. Mr. Beast did this 10, actually, like closer to almost 15 years ago or so. And it's taken him some time to gain traction, and we're still early in this process. You haven't even had your podcast for 1 year. I haven't even been live streaming for 5 years. Uh, I see the community that I've been able to build in 5 years, and the amount of interviews that I've been able to do, and really the amount of data and content that I've been able to create. And I say to myself, it's not going to be another 5 years, especially because I know I didn't really promote myself that much in the first year or two. Like, I didn't have a Discord till 2 years ago. Like that, like, it's all taken me time, but eventually, what's gonna happen? Like, I had somebody come in here earlier today, and I said to them, "Hey, how'd you find out about me?" And they're like, "Omelet Arcade," and I'm like, "Omelet Arcade? What's that?" And they're like, uh, Omelet Arcade. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. It was a platform that actually shut down a few years ago, but I used to stream on it, and I forgot that I streamed on it. And this guy was like, yeah, I knew you from there, and then I also saw you on YouTube, and then I came into your Discord. I got another guy the other day who was like, I'm like, how'd you find out about me? He's like, a podcast. I'm like, no way, really? He's like, yeah, but I've got to be honest with you. I saw you on Discord first. And I saw you on Discord. You used to stream yourself in there, and I got curious as to who you were. And now I'm in here. Like it's like people with enough influence, you recognize that the internet isn't all that big. And it's, it's, it's incredibly actually small. Um, Once you start recognizing that like there aren't unlimited people out there, that it's limited, and you recognize that okay, so there are 8 billion people on earth, and of those 4 billion of them maybe have internet access, and of those
Mm-hmm.
4 billion only 2 billion of them really have regular internet access using like a smart device, and of those 2 billion only 1 billion of them use social media, and of those 1 billion fewer than 500 million of them are like using English. And of that 500 million, only 250 million of them are using social media in English more than, let's say, an hour a day or something like that. And then of that, only 100 million of them are using social media for more than 2 hours a day. And of that, only 50 million of them are using social media like 3 hours a day. And of that, only 25 million of them are actually YouTube creators. And of that 25, like it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller until you start to see some of the same people that you saw in other on other platforms. So for you, I know you got this girl on your mind. There's a saying, the best revenge is massive success, and you're on the route to that. You're going to have more money than this guy that she likes. You're going to have more friends than this guy that she likes. You're going to have a better body. You're going to be living longer. You're going to have better offspring. And it will be your choice in the future whether you date her, not what it currently is her choice whether to date you. Does that make sense? Well, I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
It makes sense.
What's the best revenge?
Revenge is massive winning.
That's right. Massive success. That's exactly right. The best revenge is massive success. And
Yeah.
you're going to be massively successful.
It's like it's like I don't know, like I know you have what you say is 100% true, and I know that because like I am trying, I'm do things, but it's very hard for me to like do it every day and not get encouraged by more people like you have.
When I started, nobody knew what I was doing. I didn't care about anybody. And uh, it just takes time. I mean, even when I have so much more wisdom now that I have than I had when I was young. I thought I knew it all when I was 20. I thought I knew even more when I was 25. And you start to recognize that it's a big world out there. And then you start to listen more. And there's a saying, you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. You should listen twice as much as you speak.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's actually good. Good.
It is. So I know you want this girl, and that's fine. It's not over yet. Just like anybody out there, um, if you can live a very, very long time, you could marry this woman 50 times if you want in the future.
But like, what if this is kind of event and I'm losing her every universe, every parallel universe. What if this is must to happen? What if it's a canon event?
Hey, that very well could happen. I don't know exactly what's going on with the world. I'm just telling you that
Yeah,
it would be like okay, you ever play a video game and you're about to die because you run out of energy, but then all of a sudden there's an extra life or like an energy pack in the future, and you say to
yeah,
yourself, all I have to do is get to that extra life or that energy pack, and everything's going to be okay. Well, we're currently at the point where that energy pack or that extra life is within our grasp. It was not for perhaps our grandparents or great grandparents or great great grandparents. Uh, they were almost there, but they weren't quite there yet. We are going to have this within our grasp, perhaps. And because of that, we may be able to control our own destiny and live very long lives.
but we need to be famous and rich for that because no more people it doesn't have that access.
I know. Even let's say you didn't know me and I couldn't make you rich and famous and everything. If you did a podcast today for the next 10 years, you would have over 3,000 podcasts.
Yeah,
That's 3,000 people who have audiences that would help you to network. You would be pretty rich and famous if you just did that. You know that, right?
yeah.
So that's what you
But
have to.
like with you is a faster.
It is with me. It is faster, um, because with me, at any time, I could meet somebody and they find out what I'm doing, and it will blow up. It will be the biggest event on the internet. And with you, you would be able to say to someone, "All right, well, I've done 3,000 podcasts. Like that's a lot of podcasts." And they're like, "Yeah, but you're talking with like just random people about nothing or whatever." Um, and people could be able to say to me, "Okay, uh, well, all I see is just you sleeping, like what your mom says." And I don't, I'm saying that. I'm like, "Okay, do you see my streams when I was in Santa Barbara?" They're like, "No." "Do you see my streams when I was in San Diego?" They're like, "No." "Do you see my streams when I was in Beverly Hills?" "No." "Do you see my streams at the Hollywood sign or at the Walk of Fame or my streams at Disneyland?" "No, I haven't seen any of those." Exactly. So you are only looking at a snapshot of what I'm doing right now. You haven't seen the totality. Have you seen the songs that I've sung, or the projects we've created, or the games that we've played, or the events that we've archived? No, I haven't seen any of that. Exactly. Because you just have one small segment. If you go and start looking through what I have, it's going to be very interesting. And there is a saying in the media, it's called content is king. Whatever people have the most amount of something, they're the kings. And I have more content than anybody.
That's true. Okay.
Even these like little conversations that we're having, which are seemingly like, I don't want to say meaningless, they have a lot of meaning to them, but like people of the future will study these in depth and they'll be like, wow, on this date, remember they had this conversation and Tony got a superhero cartoon or comic book made, and they were talking about this girl, and Tony eventually would end up marrying that girl and having children with that girl 1,000 years in the future. Like it's just as you were coming in, I was watching a documentary on. It's actually on the history of a certain video game, but the video game is based on historical events, and they were just going through like people's diaries of like 150 years ago, and that's exactly what this is. This is just a diary of my life, but also of world events, and it's like how would we put it? How would I describe it? Uh, the only thing that I have is data. I But that's all I need. It's like
how would I describe it from like a person's standpoint? Um, it's it's like if you were to take, let's just say a an elementary school class 50 years into the future, and you were to say to them, all right class, we have, you can do whatever you want. Some kids might want to watch sports, some kids might want to talk about technology, some kids might want to watch video games, but you would say to the kids, okay, you can do all that, but eventually you're going to run out of videos that they have.
Hmm.
Or we have this other person, and they made all this content that you could spend 100 years watching their videos and you still won't watch them all. The kids are going to be like, that one, it's unlimited. It's like infinite lives. It's like unlimited content. Uh, it's like you could drink, you could drink at this fountain and it would always be replenished. The other fountains are like a water bottle or a gallon of water or a trough. But mine is an infinite fountainhead, and you can always drink at it and get something new out of it.
That's true. That's true.
All right, big dog. So, from a a girl standpoint, it's okay. Look, there's this saying that I really like that uh, everybody, there's somebody out there for everyone or whatever. If they're not with you right now, it may never happen, but maybe they're just learning what to compare you against so that when you are together, she recognizes, oh, Tony does this better. He makes me laugh more. He has more confidence. He's funnier. He's more intelligent. He has more foresight. He's a better father. And I would not know how great Tony is if I didn't have the experience with this other guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
There you go.
true.
And Tony, if you have to say to yourself, if you really want this girl, even without the help of Rabbi, all you need to do is do a podcast a day, or I know it's difficult, but for the next 10 years, just like you've done for like almost 3 years with chess. You do a podcast like that, and you would be famous on your own. You know that, right? There's no other Czech influencer out there who has done 3,000 podcasts,
True.
and you're young enough that you could do that. And you're already getting paid to do podcasts. I know not a lot, but a little bit. And
Yeah.
you have to say, okay, it took you 35 podcasts to start making a little money. By 350 podcasts, you'll probably have at least one sponsor. And by 3,500 podcasts, you're going to have a mansion. And
True.
you know how these podcasts work. It's not like they go away. So people's views build on each other, and the longer that you're very you're a beautiful soul. You're short minded though. You're like, oh, this got 10 views, or this got 20 views, or this got 100 views. The reason why it didn't get a million views is because the algorithm did not put it in front of a million different people to view it. If it felt that if the algorithm wanted to promote your content, it would. It's about not necessarily the result. The result will come if you did 300 podcasts. There are people who will start to just go through all your podcasts. I watched this one podcast, and I've watched all of, there are like 750 of them. uh I've watched all the podcasts just about like 2 or 3 times, and they're each like an hour and a half long. It's a comedy podcast. This comedy podcast has made these guys into multi-millionaires, and they've only put out 750 of them. But it's a lesson to me. I look at their early podcasts, and they were like making minimum wage. They had nothing. They just were like, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have a microphone, and we're gonna have people come up and tell us jokes for 60 seconds, and we're gonna critique them." And they did. They started that 13 years ago, and they're multimillionaires now. They play the biggest facilities in the United States and the world. They've played in Europe. They've played the O2 Arena. They've played Madison Square Garden. They've played in Australia. Every major English speaking country they've played. They've been able to tour the world because they just said to themselves, every Monday night, no matter what, we're going to put out a podcast. And they do. And they've been very successful at it. And that's why I say to you, if you can just say to yourself, every day, I'm going to interview somebody, even if it's the mailman or the person giving coffee or whatever, and like that's fascinating, and people will enjoy that even more than in many ways they'll enjoy um, the chief of police or the UFC fighter. There's a podcaster in the United States, and he has interviewed like he's interviewed the president, he's interviewed the vice president, and
Mm-hmm.
those get big uh those get big uh people who listen to them. But then the ones that the people like the most are the ones where he interviews a school lunch lady or a trash man or a plumber. Those ones people love, as like those are the ones that people have on repeat all the time. They love them. They love the stories. They're human, and you're doing the same thing.
That's true. Very true.
Okay, big dog. I'm not going to talk your ear off anymore. Get out those podcasts and or that. Try to publish one today. You've got the description. You have to put together a thumbnail,
Yeah.
and then you start a new playlist, and you have one thing in the playlist, but then maybe within the next week you'll publish another one and another one and another one. And uh, I imagine those. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. At first, we're not going to get a lot of people watching those because they're not they're kind of boring. But uh, once we get 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 of them, there will be people who just search for this stuff and just listen to them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be an interesting, kind of an interesting thing for the future.
That's true. Robert. That's true.
All right, big dog. Well, you go to publishing. I'm going to continue watching my documentary, and if you need me, I'm here for you. Okay?
Okay. Robert. You are okay. I will tell you this. Okay.
Tell me
Okay.
what. Tell me whatever you want, big dog.
You are like I am walking my road, and you are like the guy from the wire milestone who have a flashlight, and 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 you are like fresh at me things or ways I can go.
Yes, that's right. I'm like a fountain.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You're right. Did you ever watch Lord of the Rings? Do you know what Lord of the Rings is?
I know, but I never watched it. Never.
That's okay. Um, I'm like there's a character in it named Gandalf. He's a wizard,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like that for you. Like you're like on your you're on your road, and I give you magic. I can be like, oh, this is what you want. Well, like the thing with the comic book, you were with your friend or whatever, and like we were able to put together exactly what you wanted for a comic book within 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like all you have to say to me is, "How do I do this?" And I give you a way how to do it. Like we did, like when we met, you weren't even on Spotify. You considered yourself to be a podcaster, and you weren't on the biggest podcasting platform in the world.
True.
And now you are,
True.
and you will get more and more motivated when people are like, "Oh yeah, Tony, I heard about you from whatever. I saw you on whatever. You had an interview or whatever. I thought that was really neat, or it affected me." So, um, yeah. But you can always come to me. I mean, generally, if I'm awake or whatever, I'm not always awake, but um, I will help to build you up and give you ideas. And right now,
But like, but like how, but, but like how can I help you? I'm thinking this is only one way road friendships. How can I benefit you? I
you,
can.
you keep coming in here. That gives me an immense benefit. I get joy out of helping other people. And if I don't have other people, I can't get joy. By the way, our
Mm-hmm.
friend Zoot, he's going to be on your podcast. But get this, he's going to be in a
Ooh,
movie. Zoot. Zoot is also an actor. He's also a
ooh.
comedian. And I would say the biggest comedian in Australia asked him yesterday to be in his movie. And so once he, I probably like once he is in this movie, we'll have you interview him and he can tell you everything what it was like to be on set and what it's like with these famous people. But that's going to be really interesting. Anyway, helping people, I get a lot of joy out of that. Um, and how do you help me? You give me someone who I can help. Like the fact that you were like, I want to put together a comic book, and I was able to show you this, and I hear your reaction. Ooh, look at this! This is G. This is cool. Yeah, I get joy out of that.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, my man. All right, now go publish that,
Yeah.
and if you need help, I'm here. But you've got some editing to do, so if you don't get it all
Yeah.
published today, I understand. Um, but do your best, and if you need my help, I'm here for you. Okay?
Okay. I talk to you soon.
All right,
Bye.
God willing. Take
Take care.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Yo, what's going on? How are you, Lightyear? Lightyear, how are you? Can you hear me? Hope you're having a good day, big dog.
technical documentation, suggested readings, and ideas for integrating the game into the curriculum. Once again, Oregon was a hit with students. For the next 5 years, it was the most run program on the MEC software library.
When I was hired in Minneapolis, I then had access to the game, and I managed to include it in my math classes. Sometimes it's just a reward. So I was fond of it, fond of the game.
I got a job at UNIVAC, and interestingly enough, it was while I was at UNIVAC that UNIVAC put in a bid for the mainframe to run the TIE system or the MEC system. I wasn't on the project, but one of my co-workers was, and he was saying that he couldn't figure it out. There's this one program that's using up all the resources. And I said, let me guess, Oregon Trail. He says, yes, how do you know? I said, I wrote that. He said, well, what in the world is it doing? It runs all day long, every day, and never stops. He was not impressed.
With the game taking off across Minnesota, Rawitsch wanted to share Oregon with the rest of the world. So, with permission from Bill Heineman and Paul Dillenberger, Rawitsch submitted the game for publication in a popular computer magazine. And with it came an unofficial new name, popularized by the students who played it, Oregon Trail.
Creative Computing asked for permission to print the code in their magazine, which was a hobbyist's magazine. At the time, there was no such thing as software that could be purchased. So they printed out 10 pages of code or something in a magazine, and you could type it out, and as long as you didn't put a period where there was supposed to be a comma and got every parenthesis, every number exactly right, it would work. But we gave them permission, and I realized at the time that, okay, I'm giving them permission to do this. It's public domain software now. I won't get a penny from it ever, but it'll spread like wildfire.
But it wasn't until the introduction of a revolutionary new piece of technology that Oregon Trail would truly begin its cross-country journey.
One of MEC's instructional coordinators went to California and came back saying, you know, I went out to this conference in California and I saw a little thing about so big, about the size of a small box, that does everything that huge computer out there on the floor does, except it does it in color. He was talking about the Apple II microcomputer. Dale LaFrenz.
In 1977, Apple introduced a new personal computer, often called microcomputers. It was aimed at the everyday consumer. They called it the Apple II. For around $1,200, a user could have a computer that fit on a desk in their very own home. And Apple wasn't alone. That same year, Commodore released the PET, while Tandy Radio Shack offered the TRS-80. It was the beginning of a new era in the computer industry. MEC quickly took notice. They recognized that the affordability and power of a microcomputer would make it a great addition to the classroom. It would allow them to slowly phase out their large, expensive telecommunication network. MEC decided to set up a statewide purchasing contract for one particular microcomputer brand. So, they solicited bids from multiple hardware vendors. But Apple had the winning offer. Between 1978 and 1979, MEC sold more than 500 Apple II computers to Minnesota schools. It became one of Apple's largest hardware dealers. Other states followed MEC's lead and acquired Apple II computers for their own schools. The microcomputer industry boomed. Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, would later claim that one of the things that built Apple IIs was schools buying Apple IIs. The rise of personal computers was also good news for MEC, thanks to their growing educational software library. As schools in other states acquired computers, they turned to MEC for educational software. So, the organization converted their software library, written in BASIC, to Apple II BASIC, sold the games on discs. Oregon Trail, their most popular title, was one of the first games they converted.
So this original Apple II version was primarily a port of the original text-only game, but it was no longer 100% text. It was mostly text, but the main difference from the original was that the shooting activity had been put into a graphical context. So if you were hunting for food, a little deer slowly moved across the screen, and you could press spacebar to shoot at it. You could be attacked by wolves in this game, or you could be attacked by bandits, or you could be attacked by what they called hostile riders. And you could shoot at any of these, too. Otherwise, the game was pretty much a direct port from the original time version that Don Rawitch and his colleagues had created, with a few small tweaks here and there that were important.
Mech's conversion team worked their way through the back catalog of software and began offering software compilations to schools. Oregon Trail became one of 5 titles in the Elementary Volume 6 Social Studies collection. Mech sold these discs to schools around the country. They even offered them for sale to consumers through magazines like Creative Computing.
But after Mech started producing these Apple II discs, there was a potential for them being used outside the state. We started getting inquiries from other places, particularly from Iowa. Iowa wanted to be able to license all of the Mech discs at once for the Apple II. This led to a new business model where Mech was no longer relying entirely on state funding, but was getting an income stream by selling the product outside of the state to other individual school districts or entire states as a site license. For a school or a district that got a site license, they would pay an annual fee, and they could make unlimited copies of Mech software for its own use during those 12 months.
Thanks to software licensing and sales, Mech made a lot of money. So much so, in fact, that the higher-ups at Mech made a proposition to the state. Mech proposed that they would turn themselves into a company, wholly owned by the state of Minnesota. This would remove all government subsidies, but allow Mech to hire more staff without strict government regulations. They could offer bonuses, commissions, higher salaries, and more. In addition, Mech would still provide hardware and software at a steep discount to Minnesota schools. All of these changes would help Mech compete in the fast-growing software business. In 1984, the Minnesota State Legislature approved the measure, and Mech became known as the Minnesota Educational Computing Corporation. Dale LaFrenz, who was now the vice president of marketing at Mech, was ready to lead the company into new territory, the home consumer market. For their first wave of retail products, one title stood out above the rest: Oregon Trail.
There were 2 primary reasons that Mech decided finally in 1984 to create a new version of the Oregon Trail. The first reason was that the product was now out of date. The world had really changed a lot in 4 years. Products that were appearing on the market in 1984 looked so much better than the ones in 1980. They were also being created by teams of professional programmers, teams of professional artists, teams of professional educational designers. But Mech had a second reason that was even more motivating for the management. Mech was one of the biggest players in the school market, but had yet to have any real success in the home market. And they figured that Oregon Trail was their best opportunity, but it would have to be a brand new version of the Oregon Trail. It couldn't be the old one. So that was my mandate.
In October of 1984, Mech tasked Philip Bouchard, a full-time programmer on staff, to create an updated version of Oregon Trail for the home market. Bouchard had been at Mech since May of 1981. During his first few years on the job, he witnessed the meteoric rise of the software industry.
When I first started at Mech, the microcomputer group was really tiny. We had about 5 full-time people in that group. As Mech grew, the microcomputer software group got bigger and bigger, and we started working for more different kinds of computers, not just Apple IIs, but a variety of other ones like the Ataris and Commodores and so on. The rest of the company started shrinking and shrinking. The timeshare system was shut down. Pretty soon, Mech was all about creating educational computer software.
Now, Bouchard was in charge of updating Mech's most popular game. Upper management was mostly hands-off on the project. but they did have 3 requirements for the new game. First, Bouchard had to preserve what made the original game so popular.
I was aware of Oregon before I even got to NAC. I didn't get to play the game, though, until I arrived in Minnesota. I thought they were exciting. I thought they were innovative. But I also saw opportunities for improvement, opportunities for growth. I thought, there's more we can do here.
Second, the game had to appeal to the home market.
Now, I was told not to worry about the school market. I did. I decided I want to create a product that can go both ways. Let's look for the ideas that have the most potential for being both entertaining and educational. And let's emphasize those ideas.
Finally, the game had to be built for the Apple II computer.
So that was a big challenge. The Apple II's got this tiny little 64K RAM. It's got these tiny little floppy disks that would hold 128K or something. How do we get it to all fit?
With those objectives, Bouchard assembled his team.
There were 5 of us at first. So I was the team leader and lead designer. Shirley Karen was an experienced teacher. She also ended up writing all the manuals. John Krenz was named the lead programmer. Sherilyn Kaplinger was the lead graphic designer. That meant she did virtually all of the artwork that appears in the product. And then finally, we have Bob Granvin. He was just with programming, and he created the first prototype that we did for the hunting game. So at the time that our team first got started on the Oregon Trail, I was very interested in speaking with Don Rawitch. He was still on staff, so I went over to his office and spoke with him. I wanted to get his take on, well, what did he think about this? What were his thoughts as to where it might go? Would he like to be involved in weekly meetings? He kind of demurred. He said, he wanted to really respect the boundaries between the different divisions of NAC. And since he wasn't in the software division, he was just going to stand back and let us take it over. But he said, I think you've got a good team. I think you're going to do a great job. So I'm not worried.
To begin, Bouchard and his team got feedback from their target demographic, children. They wanted to know what made Oregon Trail so special.
Why do you like the Oregon Trail? What is it that most appeals to you? And the boys would enthusiastically answer, hunting, we like hunting. That was the universal answer. Girls, interestingly, we found that half the girls didn't much care for the game, and half of them did. Then when we started observing the kids playing, we could see it wasn't just the shooting that was attracting them. 2/3 of the kids actually cared about getting to Oregon. So we could see that the resource management aspect was a key part, making sure that you kept an eye on your supplies, that at no time you allowed anything to run out, because that would be certain death in that game. The other thing was the fact that after every 2-week period, some random thing would happen that was usually bad. And it kind of kept them on the edge of their seats, like, what's going to happen this time? What's going to happen this time? So those 2 aspects turned out to be what I thought were also crucial. This goal of surviving all the way to Oregon, watching your resources, and wondering what's going to happen on the way.
With the feedback, Bouchard envisioned a new foundation for the game.
The original game was based on a 2-week structure where 2 weeks would pass, a couple of things would happen, 2 weeks would pass, and so on. This particular structure did not facilitate the inclusion of any actual geography because you couldn't know where you would be at the end of these 2 weeks. I wanted a game that was heavily based on geography. I wanted it to be as much geography as history. This ended up being the idea of going from landmark to landmark. That would include a bunch of different landmarks along the way, dividing the trail into about 16 segments, each ending in a landmark. On one side, I presented this idea of a landmark-based game structure to the team. The team all bought into it. Shirley and I, we both started coming up with a list of different things that people would anticipate along the way. There were forts, of course. There were a lot of different river crossings. But there was a lot of geographical features that people would anticipate, like Chimney Rock being the most famous. But there was still an issue because I wanted the player to be able to react immediately if they ran out of food or if something happened. I wanted things to be able to happen between landmarks. So the first step in solving that problem was that in addition to the landmark to landmark cycle, I had a daily cycle going underneath it, and all of the formulas would be recomputed every day. How much food do you have left? What is the current health of every member in your party? What's the current weather on this particular date? But the next problem was now I had 150 possible stopping points along the trail. That's too many times to ask the person, what do you want to do now? Finally, I came up with this idea, well, what if from landmark to landmark. It just goes on its own. It goes day after day. All the data is up there on the screen. You can see all the different variables changing, your health, how many miles are left, how much food you have, and so on. But anytime you can stop it and then take an action at that point. But you aren't forced to answer every single day what you want to do next.
The new system simulated a day-to-day journey along the Oregon Trail. Bouchard and Shirley Caron also expanded on random events that could happen daily along the trail. A thief could steal supplies, or a member of the wagon party might break their arm. Some occurrences were positive, such as stumbling upon wild fruit. It made the journey more exciting and kept players on their toes. Still, Bouchard felt like things were simply happening to the player in the game. He wanted to give people more agency on their journey to Oregon.
In the original game, as compelling as it was, there wasn't that much opportunity for decision making. Basically, each 2-week period, you decided, do I want to hunt or not? And how much am I going to eat? Otherwise, there's mostly things happening to you. In the new product, I wanted to take that great beginning and expand it, give the users lots more opportunities, lots more decision-making potential. Part of that was adding, including additional resources, additional things that they could decide in terms of how resources were being used. Spare parts is one thing. So 3 different categories of spare parts. Because as I was doing the research, I saw how often things broke down on the trail, which would sometimes be fixed, sometimes not.
Bouchard also gave players more things to do while traveling. They could set their pace, attempt to trade for resources, or rest for a few days to recover from injuries. But one player decision became a tense experience: river crossings.
River crossings didn't occur in the original product at all. These are based on actual rivers you had to cross, and these rivers differed in their conditions. They differed in how wide they were and what the average depth. And during the course of a year, a river could change its depth of water in it. Some had ferries available, some did not. Some had helpful Native Americans who could, for a fee, help you across. Some didn't have that. So there were a lot of variables that you could incorporate into this. What a wonderful opportunity. Let's include this in the game where you have to decide how you're going to cross. The kids really loved it. But once we put in the animations, it became a nail-biting experience. You can see you've made your decision, you're starting across the river, and now you're waiting. Am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? And then halfway across, the wagon turns over, or gets all the way across to the far shore. So it's a very exciting aspect of the game as well as being an important historical educational opportunity.
But for many kids, the most exciting part of Oregon Trail was still the hunting. Bouchard wanted to ensure they got it right.
In the original, the shooting activities were very popular. That included not just hunting for food, but also shooting at attacking animals like wolves, shooting at attacking people. Quite a bit of shooting in the original game. For the new game, I decided to narrow that down just to the hunting. In part because through my research, I couldn't find any evidence of actual attacks by wild animals on the trail, and nor frontal attacks by bandits or Native Americans, anything that occurred with any frequency whatsoever. Then I wanted to make this game similar to a genuine arcade-style game, like you might find on Apple II if you bought an arcade-style game, or if you went to an actual arcade and played an arcade game. I wanted it to feel a lot like that. I worked with John Krenz and Bob Granvin, 2 of my teammates. The 3 of us got together and brainstormed hunting idea games. Bob created a little prototype that illustrated our concepts. The problem, though, was that it couldn't be done in Applesoft Basic. It would have required assembly language programming, which is a bit more, considerably more involved. It requires a specialist programmer. But eventually my boss gave me permission to do this, and we brought in another teammate, Roger Shimada, specifically to program the hunting game. When Roger first programmed the game, we didn't have the dead animals graphics ready yet. As his first cut of programming it, he just flipped the graphic upside down to show that the animal had been shot as a temporary measure. Well, it was so cute, we liked that. But we decided, we went ahead and put in the dead animal graphics that we shot it just collapsed into a lump. That wasn't nearly as effective. It turned out that it was far more effective just to flip the animal upside down, and it made for a more entertaining game, and it clearly communicated what happened.
With all of the updates, the Oregon Trail game became more and more interactive. But Bouchard couldn't forget that the game was also meant to teach students about the people who made the journey. the hardships they experienced.
So in the original game, one of the things that really caught my attention was that it almost gave the illusion that you were alone on the trail. Mentions of other people were very rare. I said, I want to be able to have other people in this wagon. It's you and these other people, probably your family members, came up with this idea. Why don't we name these people? You as the player not only provide your own name, you provide the name of these other 5 people. And then things can happen to the individual people on the wagon. Sickness was a real problem on Oregon Trail. A lot of people got sick along the way. Sickness and accidents were quite common and were, of course, the main causes of death. I did research on what diseases people mentioned most often, using the terminology that they used. I found the 6 that were mentioned most often. I took those 6 and put them into the game. All 6 are equally probable. I didn't make one more probable than the other. This worked exceedingly well. We could watch the kids. They would almost always pretend they played, put in the names of their siblings, their family members, and now they were in charge of the wagon. It became very, very personal for a lot of them, and really motivated them to try harder the next time. But I wanted to have the opportunity to meet other people along the way too. Some of these people would be other immigrants who may be in different wagons, or they could be soldiers or traders or trappers who were at a particular fort or other landmark. It could be Native Americans who lived in the area or had come to the area to do trading. This very humanity. I wanted you to be able to interact with them and hear their stories.
If players managed to make it to the last part of the journey at the Dolls Landmark, they were in for one more surprise. A choice on which route to take.
One is to raft down the Columbia River, and the other one is to take the Barlow Toll Road, which is a very rugged toll road through the mountains. And this is the reality. This is the actual reality that the travelers on the trail faced. I wanted the game to have kind of a big finale. So to make this a big finale, I wanted to have a rafting game where you raft down the river and had to survive. And to take the Barlow Toll Road, I was envisioning some other game. If I wanted to meet the needs of different students with different gameplay styles, I have a puzzle game. So how about a puzzle game in which you are trying to get your wagon up a big mountain and down the other side, which is absolutely true on the Barlow Toll Road, using ropes, levers, pulleys, again, absolutely true. And this would be a fantastic opportunity here.
But due to time and technical constraints, both games had to be modified or removed altogether.
So I got permission finally to do a really simple, stripped-down version of the rafting game, much simpler than before. But at least I got in. But the Barlow Toll Road, it operated in the same way as the rest of the game. So we never got in the puzzle game with the ropes, levers, and pulleys.
If players managed to survive the rafting or the toll road, they made it to Oregon, beating the game.
But then when the player got that far, all of a sudden we revealed that there was a scoring system underneath this that had been hidden until they arrived. And they could see that they had made a high score list and that there were other names already on that list higher than them. So now all of a sudden there was a new motivating factor. Because I was creating this product for the home market, and I needed to have all kinds of different ways to get people to keep playing it again, I wanted to go a step farther still and give you 3 different difficulty levels. It's so much easier to play when you can start with a lot of money. Ultimately, it ended up being presented as, do you want to be a banker, a carpenter, or a farmer? The implication was that each one came with a different amount of money.
If players couldn't complete the journey, they were given the option to write out their tombstone. A fun yet grim way to show a game over screen.
So the tombstone idea came up rather late in the project. The door had already closed on our being able to put any more new ideas into it. We were instead throwing out ideas. I think it was Shirley Carrot, one of our team members, who brought up the idea in the meeting. She had been reading about how people often pass grave sites, and she was wondering if we might be able to include that in the product somehow. We had this idea, well, what if after your entire party dies, you could write your own tombstone? This tombstone that you write would be stored on the disc, and then the next time you played that same game, you could see where you had last died by saying your old tombstone. Or in the school environment, where there many kids might be using the same disc, the next kid to use that disc could see the tombstone of the previous player if they got as far as that other player in combat. And kids loved it. It was a big success. And One of the nice things about it is that if you die on the way, you might feel disappointed in having failed to make it. This was a bit of a little boost. Okay, well, I didn't make it to Oregon, but at least I get to have a little bit of fun riding the Tombstone.
By February of 1985, 6 months after development began, the team was finally ready to start testing an early build of the game.
We decided to test at a school. We went to a 6th grade classroom. That was basically a 1-hour test with each of the groups of kids that we worked with. We paired them up on the computers. I would tell them, we have this product that's not finished yet, and you guys are going to help us find out what's working, what's not working. So we found that they really liked the game. There were a lot of things they did successfully, but they were bored by the main travel screen. Now, the purpose of the travel screen is to show time passing. That's where you're going from one landmark to another. The days are going by, clicking by, the data is changing on the screen. Kids were not interested in just looking at boxes of data changing. Got the team together and said, let's think of some radical ideas. What's something different that would keep the students engaged? While we were doing this brainstorming, another person who wasn't even on our team, a programmer named Bill Way, who was well known for his ability to do cute little animations, he walked up and he said, why don't you include a little animation of a ox pulling a wagon? Yeah, we should try that. Don't know if it'll work, but let's try it. Let's try building a whole screen around this. So we used that as the centerpiece of the screen and built a whole new travel screen around it. It was great. It worked very well. They paid a lot of attention to that screen. Now, they paid more attention to the animation than to the numbers, but they paid some attention to the numbers, and they were very engaged. And interestingly, that became the most famous screen of the product. So thanks, Bill, for your for giving that idea.
Thanks to their testing, the development team also found a potential major problem with the Tombstones. As Bill Heineman had learned from the original game, during development, sometimes you don't think about the devious things kids will do.
We sent out these beta copies of the product to various schools in Minnesota for them to try out and let us know what they liked, what they didn't like, what were the issues, what worked well. And one teacher wrote back and said, oh my goodness, your disc has got profanity on it. One of your QA testers must have put profanity on the Tombstone. Uh-oh. So we quickly checked all the copies of the discs. No, there was no profanity. There wasn't even a Tombstone. So I reported back to her and said, I had the 0 students that did the profanity on the Tombstones. Said, no way. My students would never do that. But regardless, I realized that we had a problem now because it probably was going to happen in other classrooms as well. So finally, okay, we're going to add another part to the teacher interface. There's a hidden teacher face on there in which you can reset the high score list. We'll allow them to reset the Tombstone too, so you can just blow the Tombstones away, and any of that profanity then of course will go away.
A final bug check, which included a company-wide contest to find the best issues in exchange for cash prizes, solidified everything. 10 months after development started, the game was finally ready. In July of 1985, Beck released their new version of Oregon Trail for the Apple II.
On this 2,000-mile, 6-month journey to the west, there was no golf service stations, Holiday Inns, or Dairy Queens. All the travelers had to anticipate were landmarks. 102 miles to the Kansas River crossing, 83 miles to the Big Blue River crossing, 119 miles to Fort Kearny, 250 miles to Chimney Rock. Carcasses of dead oxen and mules, discarded belongings, shallow graves, and the ruts of previous wagon wheels marked the way. That's the setting for the Oregon Trail, a simulation discovery game for Apple II computers from the Minnesota Educational Computing Corporation. It's my favorite type of educational game. While playing it, I got so wrapped up in the events that it began to feel as if I were really making the trip. Ross and Stovall.
Oregon Trail was an absolute hit, with students, parents, and teachers. But among all the praise and fanfare, there was a controversy. MEC chose not to include the new version of Oregon Trail in their site licensing package for schools.
This led to a revolt. Like all of our customers, our main source of income was all these site license holders who were in other states who were buying our entire collection each year. And they said, how dare you create a new version of the Oregon Trail and not include it in the site license? And MEC said, okay, we'll do a school version of it, but you'll have to buy individual copies. It won't be part of the site license. So we created the school version, which is actually the same product. Has a different manual and different packaging. And no, well, that's not good enough. We want to include this in the site license. We're paying you a lot of money every year to get all your products. We want Oregon Trail in there too. So MEC agreed, and it was included in the site license. Once it did, there were copies all over North America. This was really crucial because suddenly it became very well known. Everybody was seeing the game. It also turned out to be crucial to success in the home market. Rather than trying to sell this thing through advertising, kids learned about the game in school, loved it, and then asked their parents to buy the home market version. And then we started getting letters from teachers saying how much they loved it and how much they liked playing on their own when the students weren't around. By that point, I realized, okay, this is a big hit. This is going very well.
But for Philip Bouchard, the greatest compliment didn't come from the press or teachers. It came from his family.
Well, not long after the game came out in 1985, we drove down to Georgia to see my dad, my sister, my siblings. And I brought with me an Apple II computer. And I brought this newly released Oregon Trail game. I set up the Apple II computer, and I spent a few minutes showing it to my family. I thought, look at this cool new game we did. Now, to my surprise, my dad decided he wanted to play it. And he didn't make it Oregon on the first try, so he tried again. Once he got to Oregon, he saw that there was a high score list, and that he was near the bottom of the high score list. Well, my dad was always very competitive, so he said, well, I have to get higher on this list. So during this week that we were visiting, I hardly saw my dad. He was all the time on the Apple II computer playing Oregon Trail over and over. And finally, just before it was time to go back, he said, all right, I've done it. I'm the highest name on the list now. I've beaten Stephen Meek. You can take your Apple II computer back now. And to the best of my knowledge, that is the only time my dad ever played a computer game. But
With the overwhelming success of Oregon Trail, MEC continued to release new products on the Apple II, including Number Munchers and Word Munchers. But among the more than 300 software titles MEC released, Oregon Trail was always their bestseller. The game was so popular that Shingakusha Summit Software Company took a chance and licensed the game for a Japanese release. In the United States, Oregon Trail became a cultural phenomenon, thanks in no small part to its daily use in classrooms across the country. Anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s most likely played some version of the game in school.
I remember when I went to a track meet that my daughter was running in Oregon. I went out there to watch her senior year, and there were a bunch of girls on the track team there. Suddenly there was this commotion, and they all came running over to me and said, "Did you ride Oregon Trail, really?" So they had thought that it was only people in Oregon who played Oregon Trail. I guess when I realized that just out of a random group of kids on a track team that they had all played Oregon Trail and they all thought it was great, maybe this was a little more pervasive in society than I had even imagined up to that point.
But the kids were impressed. Just the other day, I was in a class, and he says, "You're the Oregon Trail guy, right?" So it's just, I don't know what it is, but I had no idea that you would have such an expansive audience of people who played it. It's like to touch that many people is kind of humbling in that way, even though the game is quite different from the original. But
I thought this product would reach a peak of popularity, maybe 2 years, and then kind of fade away. I certainly never anticipated talking about the product 35 years later.
Oregon Trail's success allowed MEC to dominate the school software market. But in the retail world, things were different. While the Apple II was the primary personal computer used in schools, at home, other platforms reigned supreme. There were more and more options available to consumers. Prices were coming down. The Apple II was also beginning to show its age. It was only a matter of time before schools upgraded to new computers. In order to compete, MEC had to start porting their games to other platforms. In 1990, 5 years after the Apple II release, Mech finally ported Oregon Trail and other popular titles to new platforms, such as MS-DOS. But it seemed too little, too late. Dale LaFrenz, who is now the president and CEO of Mech, admitted that the company was, quote, going to get eaten alive. It needed investment capital to develop new titles, port more games to other platforms, expand their distribution. But the state of Minnesota couldn't provide any additional funding and decided to sell the company. In 1991, a venture capital group called North American Fund II bought Mech for $5.25 million. 3 years later, in March of 1994, Mech went public and raised more than $22 million. It was a huge success. Oregon Trail continued to be a moneymaker for Mech. The company worked on sequels, spin-off games that featured the same concepts, such as Amazon Trail. At one point, Oregon Trail games accounted for 33% of Mech's revenue. Meanwhile, the original creators of Oregon Trail, Don Rawitsch, Bill Heineman, and Paul Dillenberger, never made a penny off the game.
When you're an educator, you're encouraged to write and publish. Paul and Bill and I, when you get right down to it, we were teachers. We have the teacher mentality. And so to get rich off this would have been nice, but not as important as having donated something to the world of education. Don Rawitsch.
If we had started out as entrepreneurs and we wanted to write something and try to sell it, make money, that's one thing. But that's not what we were about. We were always about good teaching, and there was no expectation that it would go beyond that.
Nobody knew anything about software. There were no people to sell it to. I think people sometimes forget that that was a very different world then, with no screens, just teletypes, and very few people were even acquainted with computers at all. It really wasn't much of a possibility.
But in February of 1995, the original creators of the game finally got some recognition. To celebrate the release of Oregon Trail 2, Mech threw an Oregon Trail-themed celebration at the Mall of America. They invited Don Rawitsch, Bill Heineman, and Paul Dillenberger as special guests. It was the first time they were recognized for their creation of the game.
We were acknowledged as the original writers, creators of the program. We were invited to come, and we were given jean jackets, which said Trailhead on the back, and we were given copies of the CD-ROM, the latest CD-ROM of the game.
And that's the only thing that I ever received from Oregon Trail was the game and the jacket.
8 months later, Mech was acquired by SoftKey for $370 million. SoftKey, founded by Kevin O'Leary, was on an acquisition spree of educational software companies. It also bought The Learning Company, makers of the popular Reader Rabbit series. After the purchase, SoftKey changed its name to The Learning Company and used it on all of their products, including Oregon Trail. 3 years later, the company purchased Bruderbund, makers of the Carmen Sandiego games. After all of the mergers, the Learning Company became the second largest independent consumer software company, behind only Microsoft. Meanwhile, the Mech offices in Minnesota continued developing games for the Learning Company. But in 1999, everything changed. Kevin O'Leary finalized the sale of the Learning Company to toy giant Mattel for an astonishing $3.8 billion in stock. He would stay on as president of a new software division at the company. Mattel hoped the purchase would add $50 million to its quarterly profits. But Mattel grossly overvalued the Learning Company, seemingly ignoring its aging games and declining sales. Instead of adding profit, Mattel lost $105 million in the third quarter of 1999. In the fourth quarter, they lost another $184 million. Kevin O'Leary cashed out his stocks and was
a documentary on a video game from the 1980s and 1990s called The Oregon Trail. Have you ever played The Oregon Trail? All right, well, it changed the world. How's your day gone? Excellent to hear, my man. If you need me, I'm here for you, okay, big dog?
Subsequently fired. As a result of the financial losses, Mattel permanently closed the MEC offices in Minnesota. Later, Business Week would call Mattel's purchase of the Learning Company one of the worst business deals of all time. Meanwhile, the people who created the Oregon Trail games went on with their lives. In 1990, Don Rawitch left MEC and continued his career in the educational technology sector. He worked for Jostens Learning in McGraw-Hill before finally starting his own consulting business. Paul Dillenberger worked as a math teacher and consultant in the Minneapolis school system for 30 years. Today, he's enjoying retirement.
To see it expand like that and used by so many people, it makes your heart feel warm. Certainly there was no thought of, hey, let's make something that's going to change the world. I guess that's kind of the thing. It's a lot of things happen because they happen rather than being planned.
Bill Heinemann followed his passion, worked in Minnesota's bustling computing industry before retiring. And in his spare time, he continues to try to make learning fun.
So I coach math team before and after school, and I coach chess teams. And you learn so much from playing games. I learned how to figure out 10% when I was little when I landed on income tax and Monopoly. But you play a game and you gotta learn those things. So I tried to make learning fun then. In 1971, I'm still trying to do that today.
After completing work on Number Munchers in 1986, Philip Bouchard left MEC and did some freelance work before joining Ruderbund. After Mattel's disastrous acquisition of the Learning Company and the subsequent collapse of the educational software industry, Bouchard switched gears and worked with FedEx and Morgan Stanley on web apps.
Did that for another 14 years, and then I retired. Since then, I've been able to do things that I've always wanted to do, like write books, like science books, or do more traveling, do nature photography, things like this. So I'm still busy, still doing creative things, but now they're more, I don't have to worry about the income, I just worry about doing the things I want to get out there.
Today, the Oregon Trail's journey goes on. New versions of the game continue to come out. And thanks to its prevalence in classrooms across the country, it has become a nostalgic memory for millions, enshrining itself as a permanent fixture in pop culture. There is Oregon Trail merchandise, card games, books, parody games, a musical, and more.
Over and over again, you see T-shirts or other memes on the internet that say, "You have died of dysentery." The interesting thing, though, is that phrase, "You have died of dysentery," doesn't actually appear in the product. Instead, it will say, "Sarah has dysentery." And then a little bit later on, you may see another message that says, "Sarah has died." Furthermore, it never says you. Even if you, as a team leader, die, it gives you by your name. So if you're the team leader as Philip, then it says Philip has died. So never does it say you have died of dysentery, but that meme does capture the essence of what's happening in the game. So it's a good meme in that regard.
In 2016, the Strong National Museum of Play recognized the importance of the Oregon Trail and inducted it into the World Video Game Hall of Fame. It was the first game inducted that was created for educational purposes.
We were very proud of the fact that we're up there with Zelda, Pong, and Space Invaders, all those games, and here's one that was a little different.
have so many people that when they find out that I helped create the Oregon Trail computer program, that was the highlight of my junior high experience. If it weren't for Oregon Trail, I would have hated school, but there was always that to look forward to in history class.
For more than 50 years, the Oregon Trail has taught students about the perilous journey people made in the 1800s for a better life. It's given educators new ways to teach children by incorporating games and technology into the classroom. It helped bring about a whole new software industry, edutainment games. But above all, it taught us that learning could be fun.
It was the joke heard around the world, the one by President Reagan about bombing the Soviet Union, and it resulted in a
1984. The Cold War raged between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Major economic and political differences created a constant state of tension between the former allies. Capitalist United States experienced unprecedented economic growth. Apple released the highly anticipated Macintosh personal computer. Los Angeles hosted the 1984 Summer Olympics. Two major blockbusters hit theaters, Ghostbusters and Gremlins. Bruce Springsteen released his most successful record, Born in the USA. The nation grew and prospered, socially and economically. But the communist Soviet Union was a stark contrast. The economy was stagnant. The cost of oil, one of the country's leading exports, declined. The country boycotted the 1984 Summer Olympics, citing anti-Soviet hysteria. General Secretary Konstantin Chernenko was terminally ill. Mikhail Gorbachev waited in the wings. The country was 5 years into a conflict with Afghanistan. Citizens grew frustrated and had little money. The government enacted sweeping reforms to eradicate dissent and restore order. The two nations couldn't have been more divided. But that summer, a computer programmer in the Soviet Union created something special. It was a puzzle game that took the video game industry by storm and helped break the boundaries between the two superpowers. Alexei Leonidovich Pajitnov was born on March 14, 1956 in Moscow. His mother was a journalist who reported on cinema, a somewhat controversial art form in the Soviet Union. His father was a philosopher, a writer, and a dissident of the communist regime. When Pajitnov was 11, his parents divorced. From then on, he and his mother lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment. But their time together introduced him to pop culture. As a writer, his mother regularly attended the Moscow International Film Festival. Sometimes she brought young Alexei along and introduced him to films from around the world. He loved James Bond. He also loved math puzzles and board games, one of the few forms of entertainment available to children of the Soviet Union. One of his favorites was Pentominoes. The goal of the game is to arrange 12 unique puzzle pieces consisting of 5 blocks each into a rectangle. As a child in the 60s, Pajitnov witnessed the competition of space exploration between the United States and the Soviet Union. The USSR recruited scientists and engineers to give them an advantage. They hoped to draw children into the field by showing off the latest technology. As a result, 17-year-old Pajitnov was introduced to the computer. It left a lasting impression on him. He enrolled at the Moscow Institute of Aviation, where he earned his master's degree in applied mathematics. After graduating, Pajitnov joined the famous Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow, where he landed a research position in the Dorotnitsyn Computing Center. But the computing center wasn't exactly at the forefront of technology. All employees used the same room-sized mainframe computer. Work conditions weren't ideal either. Pajitnov shared his desk with 3 other researchers. He followed the same routine almost every day. Wake up between 7:30 and 8 a.m., eat a breakfast of sausage, eggs, and cottage cheese, run some errands, then arrive at the computing center by 10 a.m. He worked until midnight, which gave him some alone time in the evenings. Eventually, Pajitnov and a few other employees got an upgrade, their own personal Electronica 60 computer workstation. It was a huge upgrade over the giant mainframe computers, but to the rest of the modern world, it was ancient. The Electronica 60 was a clone of the LSI-11 computer, a system that came out 9 years prior. The display didn't show any graphics, only alphanumeric characters. Pajitnov worked on artificial intelligence programs and speech recognition software. The latter caught the attention of the KGB, Russia's head security agency. They hoped it could record phone conversations. But in the evenings, Pajitnov and a few other researchers had the computers to themselves to work on their own side projects. One programmer was obsessed with Pac-Man, one of the few arcade games to make its way past the Iron Curtain. He spent hours trying to reverse engineer it. There was also Dmitry Pavlovsky, a fellow researcher and friend who programmed several games on the giant mainframe computer stored away in the computing center. There was also a 16-year-old programming prodigy named Vadim Gerasimov. After impressing his computer science teacher, he was brought to the computing center to learn more about programming and assist with projects. Pavlovsky introduced Gerasimov to Alexei Pajitnov. The trio shared a love of computer games and programming, so they formed a team and brainstormed game ideas in the evenings. They hoped to package the games and possibly sell them, an extremely difficult endeavor in the Soviet Union. Pajitnov sat at his desk late into the night, brainstorming. He thought back to his childhood, when he spent hours playing pentominoes. Surely there was a way to translate this experience to the computer. Pajitnov made adjustments to the standard pentomino game to accommodate for his outdated hardware. He cut the 5-block shapes down to 4, which reduced the number of pieces from 12 to 7. In 6 days, Pajitnov completed his first version. He named it Genetic Engineering. The goal was simple: arrange the pieces until they fit into a box. It worked, but there was just one problem. It was boring. Once a player figured out the solution, they had no reason to play again. The game needed to challenge and engage the player. So Pajitnov made the game more hectic. He narrowed the playing field to the center of the screen and had the pieces fall constantly. It was definitely more engaging and fast-paced, but that created a new problem. If you failed to complete a row, it stayed on the screen. If you completed a row, it stayed on the screen too. It wasn't satisfying, and the game ended too quickly. Pajitnov's next modification made the game addictive. As soon as the player filled in an entire row, it disappeared. The game could potentially last forever, and fitting the puzzle pieces together was a satisfying reward. Suddenly, he couldn't stop playing his new game. He even played during work hours, claiming to be debugging software. The game was naturally addictive and didn't require any sort of tutorial or explanation. Pajitnov named the game Tetris, combining the Greek word tetra, meaning 4, with his favorite sport, tennis. It had a basic scoring system, no sound, and no extra levels, but it was addictive and easily the best game in the trio's computer game package. But no one ever imagined Tetris would make it outside the halls of the Dornitsin Computing Center. It only worked on the outdated Electronica 60 computer. Tetris gained a small cult following at the Russian Academy of Sciences. Pajitnov wanted to expand his audience, but the only way to do that was to program the game for a more commonly available platform, the IBM PC. He approached the 16-year-old whiz kid, Vadim Gerasimov, and asked if he could assist. It would be a somewhat difficult task. Gerasimov needed to rewrite the entire program on a computer he'd never used before. But in only a few days, Gerasimov had a working prototype. He had a fully functional, widely compatible version ready in a few weeks. He added color to the tetrominos, multiple levels, plus the ability to save your high score. Tetris was more addictive than ever before. However, the dream of selling their collection of games was falling apart. Starting a business, let alone a software business, was highly unusual in communist Soviet Union. Plus, they made Tetris at the Russian Academy of Sciences, which technically made the game government property. Pajitnov, Pavlovsky, and Gerasimov didn't want to see their hard work go to waste. They named their collection of games Computer Funfair and made copies, which they distributed to whoever was interested. One such person was Vladimir Pokyilko, Alexei Pajitnov's friend and a clinical psychologist at the Moscow Medical Center. When he fired up Tetris at his workstation, he immediately recognized the addictive nature of the game. As rows of blocks disappeared, it gave the player an emotional high, fueling them to keep playing. Pokyilko made copies of the game for his fellow employees. Soon, the entire psychology department was hooked. Pokyilko feared the game would interfere with their work, so he destroyed every copy in the medical center. But the game found its way back. Rather than fight it, Pokyilko thought the game could be useful in studying addiction. A unique two-player version was developed specifically for the Moscow Medical Center by Pajitnov and Gerasimov. By 1986, Tetris spread like wildfire throughout the Soviet Union. Almost anyone with access to an IBM PC had some form of the game. Pajitnov didn't make a penny, but he was excited about the popularity of the game. But it was only the beginning. Eventually, Tetris made its way outside the Soviet Union, which ignited an epic battle to cash in on the puzzle game. With its simple and addictive gameplay mechanics, Tetris took over the free time of Soviet workers. One such person was Alexei Pajitnov's boss. He shared a copy with some colleagues at the SCKI Institute of Computer Science in Budapest, Hungary. They loved it. Some students at the institute even ported the game to the Commodore 64 and Apple II, two popular home computers in the Western world. With that, Tetris officially crossed the Iron Curtain. In a sense, Hungary was the Western world's closest connection to Soviet life. It was under communist rule. But after the 1956 revolution, the Hungarian government passed major economic reforms to create a more open, free market. One of Hungary's most popular exports was the Rubik's Cube, created by Erno Rubik in 1974. Hungary was the place to go for business people looking to license Eastern products to Western audiences. One such businessman was Robert Stein, owner of the British software company Andromeda Software. After selling computer hardware in the 80s, Stein switched to a much more profitable business, selling software. But rather than look for potential new games in the UK, he found his talent in his native country of Hungary. His business model was simple. Find a game, sell it to a publisher in the West, and collect royalties on the sales. Stein frequently visited the SCKI Institute of Computer Science for new titles, and in 1986, he noticed someone playing a game in the corner of the computer lab. It was Tetris. What the hell is this? He asked. Oh, it's just a game, an employee replied. Intrigued, Stein tried the game for himself. He wasn't a gamer, but he couldn't stop playing Tetris. It was a surefire hit. He immediately went to the director of the institute and inquired about licensing. But the director sheepishly admitted that the game wasn't theirs. If Stein wanted to license Tetris, he would have to make a deal with the Soviet Union. But that was easier said than done. Russia's economy was still very closed off. The chances of Stein simply flying to Moscow and brokering a deal was slim to none. But the director did have one line of communication. He had the number to the Russian Academy of Sciences telex machine. Stein sent a telex message stating that he wanted to acquire the rights to Tetris. The message was forwarded to the creator, Alexei Pajitnov. Pajitnov was shocked. He'd given up the idea of selling software. Now, he had an offer in writing for the rights to Tetris, but he had to be cautious. He made Tetris, but he had no authority to negotiate for the rights to the game. We could do nothing for personal gain, he said. It would, however, be a huge accomplishment to have a game published. After several weeks of getting translations and the proper authorization, Pajitnov sent the following reply. Yes, we are interested. We would like to have this deal. For Pajitnov, it was a way of saying, let's talk more about this. He didn't want to commit for fear of discipline from his government, but he didn't want to shut the door either. But to Robert Stein, it was a verbal agreement. As far as he knew, Andromeda Software could find a buyer for Tetris. Stein immediately went to one of his go-to publishers in the UK, Mirrorsoft. Mirrorsoft was the software division of the massive Maxwell Communications Corporation. Founded by Robert Maxwell, the decorated World War II veteran and former member of Parliament, the Maxwell Corporation owned several newspapers, magazines, and even a soccer club. Mirrorsoft was a big